Talk us through Macron's grand plan then, and as we say in this story this morning, his plan to lead Europe. What's he talking about?
Yeah, that's right, Anna. We've done a deep dive really into the way Macron is trying to reshape the European Union in his image, which you can read the full story on the Bloomberg website and terminal. But what it's really about is it's emerging that Macron now thinks this is the time to reshape the EU. He thinks everything's moving too slowly. He thinks there's no great plan. He looks to Berlin and sees Chancellor Angela Merkel, who for the last decade has been the one leading the EU, sees her sort of on the way out and thinks it's now time to get things together and really try to push through his agenda. Now that's upsetting quite a few people, but as we've seen, he's trying to sort of make new alliances in different parts of the EU, in the east, in the south, even reaching out to Vladimir Putin in Russia. That's making a few people quite angry, but it's all about trying to make the EU basically fit for purpose for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
And what are the risks with this strategy then? If that's what he's doing, if that's how he's going about it and trying to forge a new role for France at the top of the top table, if you like, for Europe, what are the risks?
Yeah, I mean, the risks are everywhere, and I think we've seen before the EU doesn't like doing things quickly. I mean, it's littered with, history is littered with the EU only making changes when there's a crisis. In a way, Macron is trying to force a crisis on the EU. He's trying to be a disruptor, if you like, trying to say, look, let's talk to Russia, look, let's think about Donald Trump, let's think about our relationship with China. That really upsets a lot of people. We saw his words 2 or 3 weeks ago about NATO, saying it was brain dead, and that's really upset a lot of diplomats, other governments around the EU 27, because they don't like one man saying that, one man going ahead without the sort of cooperation the EU is known for. The EU can't change, the EU can't move forward unless the majority of countries agree. And I think a lot of people are worried that Macron is striking out alone and he's not bringing the other governments with him.
And all of this, of course, at a time where perhaps he senses there's a power vacuum in Germany and a power vacuum at the top of the EU because Angela Merkel is on her way out. You mentioned there his views on NATO. Meanwhile, just this morning, Angela Merkel saying that Europe can't defend itself. It needs NATO. Far from suggesting that it's brain dead then. I suppose maybe they're on different pages here.
Yeah, and that's where you see the real strong dividing lines, the real strong division sort of across Europe. On the one hand, you've got Macron saying, actually, the EU should be more independent when it comes to defence. National armies should be strong again. We shouldn't be relying on the US and on NATO. And as she may well do that, Angela Merkel saying, but actually we rely on NATO because it protects peace and it protects Eastern European countries and countries in the Baltics from Russian aggression. So there's all this still to play out, and don't forget the leaders of NATO are meeting in London next week, so actually there's quite a lot of tension there. There's quite a lot of tension there anyway because of what Donald Trump has said about NATO. But for Macron to come in and sort of rip it all up and say, actually, you know, we disagree with what Angela Merkel is saying on NATO is actually quite a big thing, and it shows there's going to be some bumpy rides ahead, I think.